Greetings, Guardians. My name is Anubis, and I create content every now and again, and dabble in voice acting. The Guardians of the Lost City conducted the Great Hunt, and made the choice to destroy the Ahamkara. Wiping them from existence was never an easy choice, but the consensus had made the assessment that they were too dangerous to remain alive, and so the Great Hunt did its work. Guardians went out, hunting for the majestic wish dragons that had arrived in Sol after it was graced by the Traveler. Riven was supposedly the last known Ahamkara, and back in the Last Wish raid, we killed her. This, in combination with our efforts to hunt down her taken eggs in the Dreaming City, rendered a single seemingly immutable conclusion. The Ahamkara had passed on, and truly were no more. But Sol is a vast place, full of secrets, and we know now, thanks to the apparition of Riven's remaining spirit, that at least some of her eggs survived. They were initially hidden within her lair, and have now been scattered across the Ascendant Plane through the keylines. Whilst these eggs do represent a distinct future for the Ahamkara as a species, today I wanted to focus on the broader picture for the Ahamkara, and to ask a simple question. Was the Great Hunt truly successful? Or is it possible that some of Sol's dragons were able to slip the net? If we're going to talk about this, we need to acknowledge something seriously important. The Lost City is not truly trustworthy, at least not where dragons are concerned. Now, that's a strong claim, so I wanted to at least explain it. I've talked in some of my previous content about a sparrow from Destiny 2's vanilla release called Dinas Emrys. In this sparrow's lore tab, we see a guardian called Ariadne being questioned about her sparrow's design. This isn't because of some illegal part, but instead because it has a dragon painted on it. This questioning essentially reveals how utterly paranoid some elements of the Lost City were, and perhaps still are, about the presence of wish dragons. It seems that Executor Hideo and any forces of New Monarchy were particularly wary of the influence of wish dragons. Granted, this might have been an additional cause for concern given that Ariadne was a prominent sparrow racer who displayed her vehicle to the public regularly. But even with this to be considered, let's be really clear about how mad this situation is. This is like if someone nowadays was stopped by the police and brought in for questioning by high-ranking government officials because they had a dragon decal stamped onto their car. It's way over the top. So the Lost City's inner political circles are paranoid about dragons, to the extent that they don't want people to be prominently displaying them. On its own, that might be a little troubling, but the knock-on effect that this has on the sharing of information is important to consider. A society that's got parts of its knowledge base locked down like this is going to be stifled by rumor and dogma. Biases inherent with the beliefs of those in charge can filter down into the population until they become unspoken and assumed things for everyone. Even just this caution around the simple idea of a dragon can have consequences. It's much harder to have accurate information on something you're not allowed to speak of. I make these notes about the dogma and caution of the Lost City because the main source of information I wanted to show everyone comes from the Lost City's cryptarchy. It's the lore from the seasonal artifact, the Queensfoil Censer. Whilst it looks generally at the Ahamkara, its last note should not be overlooked. This is the lore entry, Queensfoil Censer. Awoken and Ahamkara magics mingle in the mist rising from this censer as it swings back and forth, back and forth. This report is assembled from the collected journals and accounts of Lightbearer participants of the Great Hunt, in which the Ahamkara were purged from Sol. Wishes, a verbally expressed desire expressed within audible range of any Ahamkara. This wish is granted through invocation of something known as the Anthem Anatheme, which appears to be a manner of subjecting reality to one's will, similar to a Lightbearer's ability to affect paracausality. However, little is known about how this process unfolds in practice. Henceforth, the Wisher enters a binding contract with the Ahamkara. Though, many Ahamkara will purposefully manipulate or misinterpret the parameters of this contract to draw greater nourishment from it, often causing calamity to the Wisher. Lightbearers are expected to refrain from expressing wants or desires in the presence of an Ahamkara. Verified. Ahamkara bones somehow retain intelligence, sentience, and a manner of speech yet to be defined post-mortem. It is surmised that an Ahamkara's corporeal body is not its true form, but a representation. Ahamkara feed by granting wishes. These beings possess an innate ability to alter reality and consume the quantum chaos that results from such an act. This is theorized to allow them to transcend reality. Above information regarding altering reality supported by data confirming species-wide capability to shift form into a wide variety of living and inanimate structures. Wishes, while seemingly less potent and more difficult to initiate, are still able to be granted from Ahamkara bones. Many adults patrol vast distances across Sol alone, but their territories overlap and disputes are rare. While Ahamkara do not typically hunt in packs, there have been sightings of hunting pairs. In fact, they do not appear to prey on each other at all. In one report, a dozen Ahamkara on Venus had congregated at a nexus of their territories without conflict. Unverified. 3 reports from Old Russian claim Ahamkara wielded the light. This has never been confirmed. 7 Ahamkara that evaded and slew their light-bearer pursuers are still unaccounted for. This report is believed to be an error in its totality. So again, it's worth pointing out what we were talking about from the beginning. The city's record keeping with regards to the Ahamkara is notoriously subject to dogma. It's hazardous to make any assumptions, but I think it's not impossible that this last unverified report about the 7 unaccounted Ahamkara is in itself inaccurate. The key note is simply this. If the Guardians hunting these Ahamkara are confirmed to be dead, and the Ahamkara are unaccounted for, it's not hard to imagine that the Ahamkara are still alive. So let's ask that big question. If there are still 7 Ahamkara alive and well, where are they? Well, there are some assumptions that can be made, and the first thing we can assume is that they fled the system. The reason we can assume this is because of the Nine, and more specifically, because of the presence of Zur. Zur supposedly only started appearing to the Guardians after the events of the Great Hunt. Supposedly this was because the Nine started to seek out something from the Guardians that they were previously getting from the Ahamkara. So if Zur is still around, it means that the Nine, who reside within the boundaries of the Sol system, aren't able to find them. Considering that the Nine are essentially sentient dark matter, it seems unlikely that they'd have missed the presence of the Ahamkara. That seems to imply that the 7 wish dragons that are missing have either gone to ground within the confines of a place that the Nine cannot reach, or that they've left the system entirely. I'm not sure what areas could be considered beyond the reach of the Nine, but there are a multitude of possibilities. The Hive Throne World that's been cleansed, such as Crota's, a pocket within the Ascendant Plane's ley lines, a temporal anomaly within the Vex network. All these are possibilities. The other thing I'd question is simply whether we know if the Guardians who were hunting the Ahamkara are actually dead, or if they're just assumed dead. Given the power that both groups possess, it's not impossible that an alliance of some sort might have been sought out. One can only imagine the potential escape routes for a group of Guardians and a group of Ahamkara. Given that the Wish Dragons are capable of shapeshifting, it wouldn't be beyond the reach of possibility for them to have been transported on near light speed capable craft, such as the typical jump craft of any Guardian. You could shrink one down to the size of a cat, and transporting them would be as convenient as transporting a ghost. I think the other thing to question about this report is where it even came from. It's an enigma that we can get such a report after any Guardians who might have given it died. So much for dead men telling no tales. Clearly, someone forgot to tell the person who made this report. It also begs the question of why the city was so willing to handwave this particular report when most other material concerning the Ahamkara is taken with the utmost seriousness. The city's caution and overzealous persecution of those who seek out or interact with the Ahamkara or their remains is well known. Surely this should be a greater priority. Conspiratorial as it'll sound, I think the Vanguard knows much more than they're letting on. But if they do, why would they withhold this information at such a vital time? Perhaps it's been so long since the Great Hunt that this rumor has had time to become just that, a rumor. It's possible that one of the intelligence agencies of the city, such as Our Sector or the Hidden, are still keeping tabs on this. But if they are, you'd think that Ikora Rey would know about it. It still raises that question though. When the whole world is falling apart, why not seek out any remaining dragons in the hope of enacting the wish to follow the witness? Even if this is just a rumor, if a rumor could save the system, or even the universe, it's worth chasing up. One thing is for sure, we should keep an eye on this report. If it turns out there are 7 lost dragons out in the universe, they represent a great danger and a great opportunity. Who knows who might exploit it for their own gain. Thank you for listening. I've been Anubis, and you can find more of me on Mortis Maledictum.